Major, your takeaway from that?
Well, that's going to be a soundbite, I predict, that will be around for a good long while, because President Trump is promising that that U.S.-Mexico border wall, so much a part of his campaign for the presidency, will be accomplished in his first term. Well, this administration is already falling conspicuously behind the original schedule, which of course implied, if not guaranteed, that U.S. taxpayers would not pay for the wall, but Mexico would pay for the wall. Well, that's totally on the shelf. The president keeps promising at some distant point Mexico will pay, but there's no mechanism for that whatsoever. And what this administration has tried to do for the better part of a month is persuade the, let's remind ourselves, Republican-controlled House and Senate to provide at least an initial down payment for construction of that wall on the U.S.-Mexico border. The administration sought $1.5 billion. Well, Republicans said that's not going to work. We can't get the Democratic votes for it. We can't even hold our Republican votes for that. So it advised the White House to abandon that request for direct funding for construction of the wall entirely. And the White House reluctantly agreed. It will accept other funds in this conversation about budgeting for the fiscal year 2017 that can broadly be defined as increasing border security, but nothing for the wall. So Mexico's not going to pay. U.S. taxpayers aren't going to pay anytime soon. And when the president promised, as he did in the Roosevelt Room today, that it will be constructed in his first term, well, they're already way behind schedule. And a wall that could cost as much as $20 billion doesn't have penny one allocated for it yet.
So much talk, obviously, about the funding for the wall, and it's a bad narrative, it seems to be, for the White House. Why is the president holding so firm right now?
Well, the White House is holding firm on the general priority because that's all they have. They don't have any action. They only have, well, this is a presidential priority. Last week we heard from the White House it's such a priority that the president's really going to hold firm on this. And then over the weekend, well, the dam broke. They knew, meaning the White House, they didn't have the votes, couldn't find a way to get this spending negotiations complete by the Friday deadline on the fiscal 2017 budget, and therefore avoid a government shutdown. So the White House had a very grim choice to make. Push for funding for the border wall and risk a government shutdown on the 100th day of the Trump administration, or back off, fight that border wall fight another day, and that's what they decided ultimately to do.
One of the things we heard about in the press briefing, the tariff that the administration put on Canadian lumber. And the president said he's not afraid of a trade war with Canada, but if the president wants to renegotiate NAFTA, how is this going to impact that?
Well, it could impact it significantly. The issue is softwood lumber, and the administration says through various provincial subsidies, because softwood lumber is harvested and brought to market by each Canadian province according to each province's own rules. The administration argues that subsidies at the provincial level in Canada make that softwood lumber cheaper and therefore more competitively hazardous to U.S. softwood lumber. And so they've applied a tariff to make that softwood lumber coming from Canada more expensive. Is a way to signal to Canada that the administration is serious about renegotiating the North American Free Trade Agreement between Canada, the United States, and Mexico. And this is also, Dana, a volley and an ongoing confrontation over another trade dispute with Canada, that over milk supplies. And what the Canadians have essentially said is Wisconsin and New York-based dairy farmers cannot import their product into Canada. That's created hardships for farmers in both of those states. The president again said that's a key issue for him. So for all the talk during the campaign about how many grievances President Trump would bring to the Oval Office about the United States trade relationship with Mexico, his first and toughest trade actions have been against Canada, and we don't know the direction of that. But when I asked the president directly, do you fear a trade war? He said no, because Canada runs a huge surplus. Well, in 2016, that trade surplus was only about $11 billion. So the trade between the United States and Canada, very large, is actually pretty close to parity. And the Canadians, as they've already indicated on social media accounts today, have other places to sell that softwood lumber, namely China.
A little more than the tweaking that was suggested previously in regards to Canada. Major Garrett, thank you. We appreciate it.
Sure.